Paul, King of the Fish. Episode 2. Fat Tony, the Carp Hitman. There are mean fish in the River Downham. Some have reputations that drive fear into the pulsing hearts of even the bravest of IKT warriors. But Fat Tony, the Carp Hitman, was not from the River Downham. Fat Tony was spawned in the River Farley, and was one of the sole survivors of a flood that swept him from the place of his origin to a new river, this one. It had left him with distinctive deep scars down the length of his body and a very mean attitude. No one fucked with Tony. The irony was, of course, that Fat Tony was in fact not fat. Tony was lithe, sinewy, powerful, and his scales were the color of blood. He had gained his reputation in the River Downham when he had nothing left to lose, no home, no family, nothing. Starting with rolling over minnows for their shiny scales, he soon moved on to a protection racket extorting from the small frog clan on the meander. This brought him to the attention of the Carponi family, who made him an offer that he couldn't refuse. Within days he was doing hits for the Downham Carp Mafia. His biggest hit to date was an errant dogfish, crazed with salt deprivation, who had attacked and maimed a young member of the family. There had been no witnesses to the battle, but at the end of the day the dogfish was found slaughtered and Fat Tony, the Carp Hitman, was unscratched. Only a trail of gristle between his needle-like teeth lay witness to the struggle that had occurred. For 2 days Fat Tony had been on a mission to find and eliminate a vicious pike. The individual had slain Chris, an emperor of the Downham Carp, and the royalty had commissioned the Carponi family to track down and terminate the fish responsible. There was little information available about the pike involved save that his name was Paul, King of the Fish, and that he was a brutal and merciless killer. Someone a bit like Tony. Only in the past few minutes had his stalking paid off. Ahead, along the calm section of the Downham, known only as the Stills, Fat Tony could see a mighty pike with glistening scales and a recent bite injury. As the muscular figure turned, Fat Tony darted into the shadows, watching, waiting. Paul, King of the Fish, moved gracefully, perceiving just a sparkle from the corner of his eyes. There was a carp in the shadow of a large soapstone. Paul spoke warily, "Fellow fish of the river, how are you doing?" Fat Tony spat, "No, how you doing?" And with that the carp charged, fangs wide, bloodlust in his eyes as red as his scarlet scales. Paul recoiled before the smaller carp, dodging as a bite raked his wounded side. Fat Tony tasted blood, and fell into a frenzy, his wicked eyes wide open as he reveled in the destruction. Paul fled. He was a mighty fish, but this was none other than Fat Tony, the Carp Hitman. In a straight battle the King of the Fish would be destroyed. Immediately Paul went for a pile of rocks to hide behind, hoping beyond hope that he could lose the smaller fish. Upon reaching the mound of rocks, Paul knew that he could not escape, so he rounded to face Fat Tony, and prepared to beg for his life. "So, Paul, King of the Fish. Now I shall kill you, and feast on your entrails." Paul backed off, panicking, and bashed his tail against the rock mound with a thump. "Now you die, pike." Fat Tony lunged forward for the death strike, his jaws closing for Paul's throat, ready to finish his prey. But no, his jaws snapped shut short of his target, for rocks had fallen from the shaken pile, and trapped his tail. He thrashed around to no avail as Paul watched on with a thoughtful look. And then the pike spoke. "Tony. Tony. Tony. You think you could take me, man, you think you could take me. I am Paul, King of the Fish. And you have failed, my little friend. You have failed." A single carp tear drifted from the carp's eye before Paul came forward, opened his mouth, and tore out Fat Tony's heart. Paul, King of the Fish, swam off leaving a trail of glistening fish blood in his wake. His days were still numbered, but this time the prime number was less than 4, but not 2. Shame. Come back soon for episode 3.